and welcome to another episode on the Mostly Mindful Show. I'm Arja.
And I'm Ananya.
And in today's episode, we have something a little different and something special for you. So we've got a topic that we'd like to cover, which is not really spoken about, and we want to break the stigma out there. And to help us do that, we have got our very first guest for this podcast. So what we're actually going to be talking about is a lot around therapy and how it is something I think we still shy about, don't speak openly on, just how we talk about our workouts, about our nutrition, about our plans going out. Even though therapy is a part of, a lot of people's lives, it's not something we discuss with each other. And we realized that when both of us were just chatting and became friends, it took us a couple of times where we opened up that we both do therapy and how it helps us, right?
Yeah, Arja and I were speaking about our workouts, our meal plans, nutrition, and all these other wellness-related topics. But we just hadn't spoken to each other about mental health and going to therapy, despite the fact that it's so beneficial for both of us. And then when we finally opened up about it, we realized we're not alone in this aspect. And there still is a huge stigma around mental health and therapy. So today we have our very first guest on the show, Dr. Maitri Chand. Dr. Maitri Chand is a marriage and family therapist. She's licensed in the US in the state of Georgia. She was an AAMFT approved supervisor, and she taught at Mercer University at the School of Medicine, where she trained therapists at the master's level and taught MD students when they rotated through psychiatry. So
firstly, thank you so much for agreeing to come on this podcast with us. It means a lot. And like we started off with, it's a topic that, is so important and so close and something that's not, talked about as often. We want to start off our show, especially in this very first season, by trying to make people open up and be okay with the idea to, number one, go ahead and, talk to a therapist, look out for one, and just for themselves. And then second step also being like talking to your friends about it as normally we would talk about anything else. And that's one thing we thought was just lacking in the entire wellness community. It was the mental health aspect, and that has so much to do with everything else. So I think first question to you would be, why and how did you decide to become a therapist?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm deeply honored to be your very first guest. So deeply touched about that.
Right.
And yes, thank you again. How did I decide to be a therapist? I think I've been an informal therapist almost all my life. People have always sought me out and they kind of talk to me about this, that, and the other. And I've always been very curious about our human condition. And I would notice so much variability in how people thought and what people did. And I found myself to be very different also from time to time. And that would really pique my curiosity. And I think when I was in the US, family therapy found me. I was all set to sign up for a clinical psychology course. And I saw, while waiting for my academic counselor, I saw a small little pamphlet under the professional programs in psychology, and one of them was family therapy. And when I read about what it entails and the philosophy, it really spoke to me. So I went in and I told her that I did not want to sign up for clinical psych. I wanted to sign up for family therapy. And she asked me to make certain changes to my application. And I never looked back.
Nice.
Lovely.
That's amazing. So I personally started therapy when I was feeling overwhelmed with my personal life.
Yeah.
And I know other people sign up for different reasons.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, who is therapy meant for?
Okay, that's actually a very good question. A lot of people think that therapy needs to be for everybody. And a lot of people also think that therapy needs to be only for a select few people. And I think your personal truth can lie somewhere in between. Therapy, of course, is recommended for people who have mental illness, not just the people who carry the symptom of the illness, but also for their family members, because it can get very, very exhausting. And also to try and understand what might be going on. If you want to grow, sometimes we're at a crossroads. We want to make a certain decision. Sometimes we want to understand ourselves better, our triggers better. Sometimes we just want to be able to do things differently, or to be differently. I think all of this makes for great opportunities to explore therapy and therapeutic work. Yeah.
Interesting. So I think for me, it was the same. I started therapy not too long ago, just a couple of years. And again, it was due to personal circumstances in life. And I realized I was getting really overwhelmed and, reached a stage where there are so many thoughts in your head. And at that point, it's like you're good for nothing, in the sense that you can't execute because you're so flustered in your own thoughts on what to do, how do I do it? And instead of actually sitting down to do one thing, it's like when you go to work and make a to-do list, you start to take one thing off and then move to the next. But when there's so many things to do, you don't know what to start with and where to go. And I think for me, I was just at a phase of life where I was disturbed about some things. I was confused about some things. Same like you, I think I was moving back to India from Australia. So I didn't know where do I want to be. Yeah. So it was a bunch of things. And now I won't even, I'm not shy to admit it, but I didn't know, should I be doing therapy? Is it really for me? Or will someone just look down upon it? But two of my best friends, they were doing therapy for 5 years before me as well. And they really spoke highly about it. And they're the ones who convinced me to just talk to someone and, told me, you have to find your own person who you gel along with. That's the most important. But do it. And, that's how I personally got the push. So what would be your advice for, say, someone who is just getting into therapy for the first time? They're thinking about it, but don't know what to do, how to start. Someone's stepping stone into confronting to talk to someone.
Yeah. I think, like you just mentioned, a good fit. I think that is very important. And sometimes it takes us a while to find that good fit. What else to look for? So, I think the credentials of the therapist, that's very important. If you can find that out, or many times therapists are very, very open and, don't mind answering those questions if you can ask them where they trained, their experience, how long have they been practicing, or if they are seeking help for a particular issue, you can also ask the therapist or whoever does the scheduling for the therapist that would they be comfortable, would they be okay working with certain issues or certain challenges. Some therapists are and some therapists may not be. And that will give you a very good indicator as to whether to pursue a particular therapist or not. What else? I think proximity is because Delhi has insane traffic and sometimes we don't want you to be on the road for half the day to make one appointment. So, and a lot of people are not comfortable with the online format. Sure. So if you want in-person sessions, then proximity becomes very important as well. So I would say, look for those kinds of things. And there's only one way to assess the fit. Sometimes it takes a few sessions. Sometimes it takes just for one phone call. So there are no hard and fast rules there.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think it's so much of it is about finding the right therapist for you. It's the same way we would look for a trainer. We would probably try a few trainers to see who's right for us.
Yeah.
I feel it's the same way with therapy.
Yeah. And I think it's normal, and people should also not just say, say, for example, you recommended someone to me and I spoke to them and I didn't, it wasn't my vibe or my fit. I think a lot of people also just stop at that point and be like, oh, therapy isn't for me.
Right.
And I think that's another issue a lot of people, need to break out of. It's not necessarily therapy is not for you. It's just that you have to, part of the process is to do 4 or 5 people and see who gels with you as well.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'll also tell you, there's this research that was conducted several years ago. And what we found was that there were 4 things that came up as to what makes therapy effective. And one of the things was the topmost thing that came up was the therapeutic relationship. Mm-hmm. So if that is established, then the outcome of therapy, which would be a successful outcome, is more likely. Mm-hmm. Few notches below that was what the person who sits in your office, who comes seeking therapy, what they bring with them. So their own skill sets, their mindset, their perspective, their drive, their challenges. So that also gives us a starting point. Mm-hmm. But that is the second most important and determining factor as to where therapy might go. And what we found to be of least, I'm not saying no, but least significance or of consequence were the modality that is used. Mm-hmm. So whether, you go with, let's say, family therapy, or you go with cognitive behavioral therapy, and the techniques, the strategies, the doing of therapy was concerned. So these 2 things, they kind of fall right at the bottom. And once the therapeutic relationship is established, then it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think you're right.
For sure. There's so many factors that play a role, and it's good to know that what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And so we also know that genetics plays a huge role in our overall health and also our mental health. Yes. So I wanted to ask you, how much of our mental health is shaped by nature versus nurture?
Okay. This is an excellent question. And I am going to preface it by saying that there are no easy answers here. And I'm sorry, I'm shifting around that's a lot because I do have a back problem, and sometimes finding a comfortable spot gets to be a little challenging.
Right. I'm shifting around too. Okay. Make yourself comfortable. That's what's important.
Yeah. So nature versus nurture. So a few decades ago, this argument was kind of put to rest that nature trumps nurture. Can you say that axiomatically? No, you cannot. There are certain things that, get switched on and switched off, depending on environmental factors. There are certain things that, let's say, for example, if a very young child has traumatic experiences of some kind, the impact of those would be markedly different because it's a growing, developing brain, it's a younger person, versus if the same or very similar traumatic incident or incidents were to happen with a person who's much older. So there's that variability. Now, nature trumping nurture doesn't mean that whatever it is that you are contending with, that you're faced with, that you're experiencing is set in stone. That this is a doomsday scenario and nothing can be done about it. That's not true. You can transcend it. You can work through it. You can be quite clear and determined to work on yourself and to bring about or tap into the neuroplasticity that we all talk about. And it truly is a real thing. So it doesn't become something that can or will stop you. It might be a little more challenging, but you can still transcend it. So I hope that answers.
No, that makes sense. I think it's also reassuring to know that you can work towards becoming a better version of yourself. And there's hope for everybody, really, if you're willing to put in the work.
Yes, because that's at the heart of therapy.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a safe place. Yes, you can talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about with your therapist. And that's half the work, for you to be able to find the words to express, for you to try and identify what is going on, of course, with the help of the therapist, to then kind of say, well, could this be connected to that? Like, for example, an incident that happened, to how maybe you respond in certain situations today. And when you're doing all of that, that's your hard work. So therapy, I think this was another thing that we used to talk about in the training system when I was at Mercer. So we would say, well, therapy is yoga VP. You only get out what you put in. So you've got to bring yourself to therapy. You've got to work. And of course, the therapist would be right there with you and hold your hand if need be. But you've got to do that.
That's so true. And that's what my therapist told me as well, that a lot of what happens is outside of our session. It's when you're implementing those things and putting them into practice.
Yeah.
And also not every session is easy. In fact, a lot of times you end up feeling kind of bad after the session because you've unpacked something heavy.
Yeah.
But it also means that you're
doing
progress.
You're working. Yeah. And when I cover my informed consent, I also tell people that, sometimes they might not feel very good, either during or after therapy. And that actually means that therapy is working.
Yeah, like I've left my sessions like crying as well once or twice. And it's like in a good way. It's like something has gone off, but you're also feeling happy that, you could let it out of you and you've spoken about it.
It's a good task in a lot of ways.
Very much so. Very much so.
Okay, I'm going to pick up on what both of you said a little bit, because like you mentioned, it's a chance you're getting to work on yourself, like to become a better version of yourself. And you were ending this answer with just, it's an entire range of work that you put in. Yeah. But the entire point, like half the game of therapy is to put yourself out there and, approach someone to speak. Only then are you, getting to a solution or helping yourself for why you've gone, essentially.
Yeah,
so, my question is just how, we would talk very openly. Like first thing, if you've hurt yourself physically, like had a fracture or, just hit your knee somewhere, it's very normal for you to pick up the phone and tell someone or tell your relative, oh, aaj lag gayi, or, this happened. But since you've been doing this for like decades now, why do you, like, in your point of view, why do you think it's still such a taboo to, openly talk about therapy? Like, I know we shared our experiences and now we're very open about it. We tell our friends and everything. But in society, I think it's still such a taboo. Like it takes friends years to tell the other person, oh, I am talking to someone. It took me a good 6 months to tell my own parents that, I'm doing therapy. And I still remember one of my aunts she actually did turn around and say, but why do you need to talk to a therapist? Hum hai na ghar pe. You talk to me about whatever you want. We won't judge.
Yeah.
and stuff. And I was just like, in my head, I was like, this is exactly why I didn't tell you 6 months ago. And now, because I was doing therapy for those 6 months and I spoke to my therapist about this very same thing as well, he taught me how to tackle it with my family.
Sure.
So clearly there's a taboo.
Yes,
so
there
what have you faced is like this gap?
Yeah. Well, yes, there is a taboo. And before I get to the taboo, there's something that you mentioned in the earlier part of your question. One was the taboo aspect.
Like if you enjoy yourself.
Enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Sorry, older person here. I lose track of what I've just heard. See, it's very easy to show or to tell somebody when they ask you, well, where's the pain? Where does it hurt? You can show them here. This is where it hurts because it's very physical. How do you show or how do you tell a person about an emotional hurt or emotional pain? That's very difficult for you to describe or even kind of say, okay, my heart is hurting, and so that makes it a little challenging. Now, coming to the taboo part of it. So historically, I think, and also culturally so, and I'm not saying just in our culture. I think this transcends our culture. There are certain mottos or there are certain, excuse me, certain phrases that are encouraged or we are encouraged to live by. Things like mind over matter or, be strong. Find your strength.
Super empowering quotes.
Yes, absolutely. So, and they have that phrase. They bring real gifts to us, and they're not. So they're like most things. They have two sides to them. So when you are raised in a culture where, mind over matter, you can transcend this and, be strong, those kinds of mottos are encouraged in us, and our families would encourage that too. Then it's a little difficult for a person to be vulnerable because it does take them to places of shame or weakness. There's nothing wrong with any of these. These are the states of mind. These are emotions. But many times we don't have the language for it. We don't have a counter to it. We don't know how to understand it in certain contexts. And therefore, we cannot speak about it in a non-shameful, shame-inducing way. So I think some part of it is also a languaging issue. We don't have the language for it. And we'd rather not feel the shame or be put down or judged because that happens very easily. Yeah. However, unintentionally, but it can happen very easily. And so we decide not to. A little thing like, for example, if you've heard a parent either call a sibling, call you, or talk about somebody else's child as, oh my God, such a crybaby. Now, it might have been a very innocuous kind of statement, but it'll stay with you. And anything that will keep you away from you being categorized as a crybaby, you will do. Mm-hmm. And therefore, stepping into vulnerability, which actually takes a lot of courage, and it's wonderful when you are able to do it, it'll stop you from doing that. So then we are for supermen and superwomen.
Yeah, that's a condition socially.
Yeah, because I think
pain don't hurt.
Yeah, and I also think it's maybe just because you don't know. Like I think, like you said, a part of it is like just societal as well.
Yeah.
As of now, like we haven't reached a stage where we can openly talk about it. I think a lot of the reason stems from there as well, because the noise around therapy as such is that, if you're going to therapy means there's something wrong with you, which I don't think is true. And like, I'll share a little personal example. Since when I started doing therapy, it was because I was feeling certain emotions, right? And I needed to talk it out. And then I was telling my cousins about it as well, that, I started therapy and it's been great and stuff. And there were two of my cousins who were just like, you're speaking so highly of it. Even we'll try. And I said, you should. And they live in London.
Yeah.
So they, of course, reached out to therapists there for themselves. And it was really nice because like one of my brothers literally said, I have nothing wrong. Like I feel everything.
Absolutely.
And he literally said, I feel like everything in life is going as per I wanted it to be going. And like I'm at a very happy space. But I still want to do therapy because I don't think you have to do it only when there's something wrong. Sometimes you can also just talk if everything is right.
Yeah.
And you just talk out feeling a good emotion as well. And it's so funny because I stopped after that, but he still continues, doing therapy.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Yes. No, that is very true. I think the typical thought is that, well, why would you would only seek something if there is something not okay.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of a flawed logic there, because everything might be absolutely okay. You just might be curious, or you just might want to, challenge yourself to grow in different ways, in different directions. And none of that means that how you are and who you are not okay with. So,
Absolutely.
it doesn't mean that. These are not mutually exclusive categories.
So true. I mean, even with physical health, I keep comparing this mental health to physical health because I feel it's easier to understand. But sometimes you might be seemingly fit and you don't have any health ailments, but you still want to work out and take care of yourself because you feel better after.
Yeah.
And it's the same for me with mental health. And I find that health, of course, is holistic. You can't really look at the physical aspect without the emotional and mental aspect. And so I wanted to ask you, do you find that unresolved emotions and mental trauma or feelings manifest in physical ailments? And what is the mind-body connection like?
I think that's the only connect that is deeply meaningful and a connect that really matters. These are both things that make us who we are, that help us do things that we want to do or not. Our brain will tell our body to push harder, and hopefully our body complies, and vice versa. The body also then kind of tells the brain sometimes that, I can't deal with this anymore. I need to breathe. So I don't need to think anymore, those kinds of things. So that there's a constant communication, and I'm kind of verbalizing this communication. Many a times it is also a non-verbal kind of communication. What we do see a lot is in the realm of psychosomatic or just somatic experiences that manifest in our body. Sometimes when we are very, very stressed, one of the things, the easiest things to pick up, shifts in appetite. So either we will be drawn to food or we will shun food entirely. Sleep patterns kind of start deviating from the norm. Your hair will just kind of fall. Many a times your tummy goes for a toss. So these are all signs that, something is going on.
Yeah.
And now we also have certain diagnosable conditions which are clearly related to stress and, or the, mismanagement of stress or the struggle to manage stress. We are not constructed, at least I don't think so, to be in crisis fighting mode all the time. We are constructed to have a sharp spike go up where the crisis kind of manifests, and we do the firefighting and we take care of it, we find solutions, and then we are constructed to have it come down because our baseline is somewhere else. So when we are unable to come down to our baseline, I think our body responds, so does our mind.
Indeed. It's amazing how much your body can tell you about what's going on. And I agree with you that they're so interconnected.
Yes, they are.
And so many of the things you just described, sometimes you might feel it like butterflies in your stomach.
True. Yeah.
When you're feeling anxious, I tend to feel it in my stomach first. It's so much of it. Your body really knows how to tell you when something's off.
Yeah.
So it's listening to your gut, listening to your body. It will be able to tell you. And that's when you know that you should really be either seeking help or taking better care of yourself.
Yeah. Very true. Very, very true. And, just add a little bit to it. If you pay real attention to sometimes the subtle or sometimes not so subtle ways that your body talks to you as well, you'll find that there are parallels and there's some overlap as well. So many times excitement also, you experience it in your body, very similarly to fear sometimes. Or some people will get, let's say, sweaty hands, palms, or become really clammy, or your face just heats up.
Yeah.
I had one person whose ears would just become red and they would become hot. And this person would get very, very embarrassed because they would say that their anxiety and their embarrassment is no longer a very personal experience for them, where they, they can keep like a poker face, so they can work on that poker face because it was so visible. And we kind of worked on that with them as well. So I know that's the additional tidbit.
That's super interesting. I think a lot of it is physiological. So when you're stressed or when you're excited, your heart rate is rising. You sometimes go into that fight or flight mode. Even excitement can cause stress. But it may be good stress,
but it's stressful.
And it shows in some days. So you have to figure out like you said, I think you've done the mind-body connect very to the point. On how. So I wanted to also ask you since I think more of our generation and going, younger, everyone these days is just on social media. Our day starts with, you're on Instagram in the loo as well. You're always on it. But I mean, sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad, could be not the best thing, I would say, because you go obsessive, but I think you also get to learn a lot about life and things on social media. But I'm going to divide my question into two so we don't go too long today. So one is just what do you feel about the connect of social media with mental health? Is it a good thing or is it too much? Because I can say for us, maybe seeing a lot of people's workouts and diets, and this is what we discussed earlier as well.
Yeah.
We see what other people have put up, and it could be taken in not the best ways, because you're like, if this person is training like this, so should I be? Or this one is eating only this much, what should I be doing? Or I'm eating too much. So there is obviously content people put up around therapy, mental health.
True.
There are a lot of therapists on social media as well. So what would your connect be? And then part two of this would just be, how do you think is the best and, most convenient way to actually find therapists? Because we've spoken so much about the benefits, and you did touch on this earlier, but it should be, I feel like, it should be accessible, right? So what are some tips to make it accessible for someone who's just starting?
Right. I think I'll tackle the second question first, because that might be a shorter answer. In my professional experience, word of mouth gets to be really, really important. So find a trustworthy person and ask them about that. This can be a family person or a friend person. A lot of the times, if you have to go the medicine route, then you can go to a psychiatrist and they can give you references. A lot of therapists also work with psychiatrists, or sometimes the psychiatrist will then decide that for this particular challenge that you or your family you're facing, then this particular therapist might be a good match. Maybe because that therapist has their expertise in that field. So word of mouth really is very helpful. Now, the thing about social media, I think it's a double-edged sword. and the truth lies somewhere in the middle. I cannot fault it entirely. I think it has done its bit to put things out there for people to know that maybe they are not the only ones, or lots of information that maybe would have never come our way. Now it's very easily accessible. I think the thing with social media also is that it doesn't have an off switch, also because sometimes we don't have an off switch. So when you read something or you see something on social media, be a little mindful as to who this person is and what their credentials are. If they are just sharing their own personal experiences, take it as just that. It need not translate to you in your life entirely. Be a little more discerning as to what you want to pick and choose, as to what will fit your life better, what will fit you a little better. Now, with social media, I think more is not better. Sometimes more is just more. And for when you are a consumer, for you to then draw your own boundaries around that. Otherwise, it can set it up as a spiral where one thing might lead to another, and then the helpfulness, the therapeutic aspect of that, whatever it is that you were seeking, then it gets either completely muddied or it gets lost. So it's somewhere in the middle where you can be a little more discerning.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think now so much of social media, a lot of creators are now posting a lot of sensationalized things so that it works on the algorithm. Because if it's just...
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah. So it becomes super extreme. Yeah. So you have to
get the numbers right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you have to be so careful about what kind of information you're taking.
Yeah. And if anything that resonates with you, anything that you're curious about, it confuses you, if you have read up or watched it on social media, take it back to your therapist. Make it part of the conversation. So a lot of the therapists are actually very open, because we... this includes me also, because I think when you go seeking certain information, it also indicates how invested you are in your own well-being and your own health, aspects of your health. So when you take that back to the therapist and you weave that into the conversations that you're having there, then whatever confuses you, you can get the information from a credible source. And that then becomes very helpful.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah, that's good to know. And definitely about drawing the boundary is so important, knowing when to stop, because it is an addiction.
It is.
Yes. And I cannot tell you the amount of psychology that goes into the making of all of this, and the dopamine circuit. So you just kind of get hooked.
For sure.
It's by design.
You want that quick hit of dopamine by just opening the feed, having a little scroll.
Who would want to wait for 2 days? You want it right now.
Exactly.
In fact, you want it 3 seconds ago.
Yeah, that's true. I think the biggest challenge with social media is actually telling your brain to like stop watching it, because like it's so easy to be like, oh, one more reel, and then you know it's 1 more hour.
It's an abyss, for sure. Yeah. Okay. What were you saying?
Yeah, I was just about to say that, and so once upon a time, we used to talk a lot slower. We used to process information slower. But because of this whole instant gratification and the quickness of the information that we have at our fingertips, our processing, I can't say processing speed, because I think that still you will take the amount of time that you will take, but our way to consume things, and that has become very, very fast. I mean, and in my field, we kind of joke about this a little bit too. with a little bit of horror that we don't even talk in words now, we talk in alphabets. So, and everybody knows what those alphabets mean.
Yeah. Our attention spans are definitely going down. Yeah.
Really short.
Yeah.
Right.
But I wanted to ask you our last question, and on a positive note. So, what is your favorite thing about your job?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I love every aspect of my job. So this one was a tough one for me. If I were to really put my mind to it and think about it, I would say there are two things. One is when the person or the persons, people sitting in my office, and it's a very palpable moment when they realize that there is a connection that is formed. And from that point onwards, the conversations become more organic. They become more free flowing. The connect happens and the conversations happen. I think that is one of my favorite moments in therapy. The other one is when people who've been on my calendar for a while and they've done the work, they've done the hard work, and then they come and tell me that they don't need to come in anymore. That is the favorite. That is my best moment ever. When they do not need to come to see you, which then also means that therapy has been successful to whatever goals that they wanted to achieve. They might have set a lot more goals, but whatever they wanted to achieve, and now they want to try things on their own, which is just lovely to experience.
Amazing. That's really nice to hear. And you made such a positive impact on so many people's lives. So I'm sure that in itself is also so rewarding.
Well, yes, but I cannot take credit for that. All I can do is show them the door. I can even help them open the door. But the walking through the door is all them. So I cannot take credit for it.
But you're part of the journey to making someone get to the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, you can say you held hands.
Yeah.
Yes, I can't say that, but it's difficult for me to then take credit for something that was their doing, their hard work, their investment in themselves. So yeah, maybe just a little bit, but the majority of the work is done by the people.
But that's so lovely to hear. I mean, I feel like we feel happy just like, knowing that. But I think thank you again, firstly. It's been amazing just to hear you share so much on it. For us personally as well, it's just been like, a lesson learning one question after the other. And I think you've helped us break a stigma that we're on a journey to help break out there as well. So thank you for being so candid with answering these questions and agreeing to come on here.
For sure. Thank you for being here. And I'd also like to say that if you're someone that's struggling with mental health or just wants to work on themselves as a person, I would really encourage you to go and seek help. As we just discussed today and you saw, nothing needs to be severely wrong for you to seek help. And I would really recommend it. And thank you for being here on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. This has been really lovely and very, very significant and important topic. So thank you.
Thank you. We hope you enjoyed our chat with Maitri. And I think if anyone listening is living in Delhi, we can also share her contact details.
If you're okay.
Yeah. But we would recommend it. So, but jokes apart, we hope that you took something out there from that chat and everything she had to share as well. And it'll be nice if you can just share something in the comments with us and drop a like, share, and follow.
See you next time.